Another big story we're following this morning, another court hearing for former President Donald Trump set for today. He will be formally charged on the additional counts in the classified documents case, raising the total charge count from 37 to 42. His two co-defendants also set to be arraigned. National political correspondent Avajoy Burnett joins us now from our D.C. newsroom with what we can expect today. Avajoy?
Hi, good morning, Jay. So this is all about that superseding indictment surrounding the classified documents case. And the superseding indictment is the new indictment that came about 2 weeks ago because there are new charges for the former president, and also a third co-defendant has been added to this case. The former president, Donald Trump, he's not expected to be there. He's waived his right to appear, and he's also pleaded not guilty once again. Remember that this is something that he did in June for that initial indictment down in Miami. So he's not going to be there today. But the person who will be there is a third co-defendant in this case. His name is Carlos de Oliveira. And that was the person who was named in the case 2 weeks ago in the new indictment, because this will be his first arraignment. He will have to be there around 10 o'clock today. And the arraignment is where someone usually goes in and enters a plea of guilty or not guilty. So, of course, this is something that we'll be watching. Once again, another case revolving around the former president where we're watching developments. And I also read some more court documents that came down yesterday. There's something interesting that is developing here. So there are rules around how all of these classified documents are supposed to be handled. We're finding out that the former president's team, they want the ability to be able to review those documents in an area close to his home. So maybe in Mar-a-Lago or Bedminster. These areas are known as Scripps, and that's a secure facility where people are able to view classified documents. So that is what the former President Trump and his team, that's what they're pushing for. On the other hand, prosecutors here, they want for these papers to be viewed in a more regional area. They don't necessarily want for it to be at an office near the president's home. So this is something that both sides are pushing back and forth on. This is something that needs to be worked out. And the judge in this case, the ultimate decision will be up to her, Jay.
National correspondent Avajoy Burnett, thank you.
For the latest now on the former president's legal fights, we want to bring in Kendall Coffey, former U.S. attorney for the Southern District of Florida, who's been tracking all these latest developments. So today's, thank you for being with us, first of all. Today's arraignment, obviously, on kind of the updated indictment. So nothing that's too much new here, except that in that property manager who's now wrapped up into the whole alleged attempt to erase security footage. This will be the first time we hear a plea from him. So little developments like that. But this evidence issue that Avajoy was talking about really kind of is fascinating here, because the heart of the case is how you allegedly mishandled documents. And now your legal team is asking the judge, well, let us review the evidence of these documents closer to home, which prosecutors would say was the scene of the initial crime, your refusal to give stuff back and to hide it from the government. What are the chances that argument succeeds here, and why does the Trump team want that?
Well, of course, they want it to be more convenient, more accessible. They want to spend less time, I guess, traveling. But I would think the judge is going to sort of move this on the side of protecting the documents in the process, because we know one thing: there are clearly documents in there that are considered classified, that have security implications. And if you're the judge, I don't think you want to take any kind of chances that some document ends up in a place that's accessible to anyone other than people with security clearances, and wants to maximize the security going forward.
So we also learned that special counsel Jack Smith's team, they obtained a search warrant in January for the former president's X account, which obviously at the time was known as Twitter. What is the reasoning behind this, wanting access to his Twitter account?
Well, their view is that his communication to his base, much of which was done by Twitter, was communication that may have been part of the January 6th criminality. So they'd like to see all the Twitter communications that he made and have them, in effect, provided by the company, because that means they can validate it and authenticate it for evidentiary purposes. And maybe they want to see if some of the attempted posts by the president were rejected by the company, and that would be interesting too. But again, was he sending out messages to stir people up and to basically stir people up so much that violence and tragedy resulted.
Because that was kind of the street level reaction to that search warrant, is that, well, his tweets are all public and they're archived, so what else could they be looking for? And someone made the point, well, they're the draft tweets that never got sent out. It could be DMs, which obviously are private messages. So there are other things within the account that they feel could be of interest there, which really is fascinating. We are supposed to get two other bits of info, two other developments this week. One, a potential trial date in this matter, and then two, the judge in this case, Tanya Chutkan, making a decision on the evidence here, which is another big deal in terms of what Trump and his team can share publicly about the evidence that has been assembled by the government. And Trump kind of saying, well, to impede me on that front is to infringe upon my First Amendment rights. Prosecutors are saying, no, this is sensitive stuff, and you could compromise the integrity of the case or intimidate witnesses. How do you see that matter playing out? That potentially is a big deal in how this whole thing moves forward.
Well, it is, because from Trump's standpoint, he has to be able to defend himself in the court of public opinion because he's a political candidate, and he wants to say to potential voters why he says he's innocent, and the government's case should not be believed. From the government's standpoint, though, we know that Trump made a pretty aggressive statement throwing out there about coming after you. So I think the judge is going to agree that any kind of statements that seem menacing or intimidating are forbidden. The other category of things I think she's going to enter a protective order on is things that could implicate grand jury testimony, because that's still an area that is supposed to be kept confidential. I don't think she could even think about shutting him down completely at this point. There's something called a gag order, where in certain circumstances, people are more or less told to say nothing at all about a case. That's considered a more extreme form of a protective order, and it does have significant constitutional implications, not just for a presidential candidate, but for anybody, because we have an open judicial process, and people are, unless it prejudices the case or inflames jurors, people are able to talk about cases.
And in 10 seconds, what's your gut sense of when this trial may begin? What do you think the judge will do?
I think the judge is going to put the trial in June or July and see what happens, whether that trial date can be met.
And obviously just months away, of course, from the presidential election. Again, the collision between political and legal calendars here is riveting. Kendall Coffey, former U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of Florida, as always, appreciate your time and your insight. Thank you, sir.
Thanks for inviting me.
Jay?